Good afternoon. My name is Adnan Mahmoud. Thanks for being here. I'm the founder of LiveStories. What we are going to do today is going to be a very interactive session where we're going to try to share with you some of the best practices that we have seen in the field around how to tell compelling stories with data and what are the characteristics of those stories. So hopefully you'll be able to take that back with you after the conference and use some of those in your own storytelling in your departments. My colleague Anders Mall will be running the event or the program, and EA sitting over there in a striped sweater, and myself will be available as consultants throughout the session. So with that, Anders, please take over.
Thank you, Adnan. So, as Adnan said, my name is Anders Small, and I'm the marketing manager at LiveStories. And as marketing manager, it's my job to help share the love of data and spread it to more people. It's also my job to tell stories around our product. So that's something I'm really passionate about. And on top of that, I actually have a background as a data analyst. On the corporate side, so I've felt the pain that it can be to work with data that I'm sure some of you are familiar with. If you can't hear me at any point, sometimes I'm a tiny human being, I have tiny lungs, so I don't speak very loud. Hopefully this will help, but if you need me to speak up, just point to the ceiling. I won't yell at you, I'll just try and speak a little louder. And if you have any questions throughout, Adnan and EA are available. There'll be interactive parts of this where you will be working a little bit on storytelling, and they can help you if you have any questions, issues, and I'll also be available, of course. The workshop today will consist of 6 parts. So we'll have the first session where we talk a little bit about availability versus accessibility when it comes to data. When you do data storytelling, we need to have the foundation, which is the data. So that's what that part is about. Then I'll talk a little bit about data tools. Every organization is different. You need to tell different data stories. And I'll give you a quick overview of the landscape of what tools are good for what things. And then we're going to go into the first activity, where we'll try and make sense of data, and you'll get time to play with data yourself, and if you have your laptop, that's the time to bring that out. Then we'll talk about visualizations, some of the common mistakes I see when people try and visualize data, what charts and visualizations should you use when, and how can you help get your message across in the best way possible. Then again, we're going to jump back to you. You'll be doing a bit more work and actually do some data storytelling yourself. And then finally, I'm going to go into the importance of context and storytelling, why this is the way the world is moving, and why we're doing this. So let me cover the availability versus accessibility. What is the difference here? So, 2009, the Obama administration launched the Open Data Directive, which has been very much the beginning of the open data and open government movement. It's a great initiative, makes data more available. But the challenge here is they're not necessarily making it more accessible. We looked at data.gov, where most of the federal data and also on local levels is published. It's an open data portal, and when you look at the files in there, those are some of the file types you'll see. I work with a lot of data, and I don't know how to handle all of these. JSON, RGF, text, ArcGIS. It's frankly a little confusing. When we look at open data, the way we see it, to make it accessible, it needs to be in a file format that any average Joe, if you will, can edit and can share easily. And that really narrows it down to two different file types. One is Excel and one is CSV. Both of those files is something you can edit with Excel, obviously, or OpenOffice, which is even a software tool, or free software tool. The way I see it is, for data to be open, you don't need to have a barrier that is skills around this, need to buy an expensive system that can make sense of it. And when it comes to the open data portal, data.gov, when we did the analysis, only 9% of all that data that is supposed to be open is, the way I see it, actually open. So that means there's a lot of data available, over 150,000 data sets, but only 9% of them are really accessible to everyone who's not a data scientist or a developer. And this is important because in many ways data is an infrastructure. It allows information to flow, it allows ideas to be shared, it allows decisions to be made faster. And if we don't have that infrastructure, that's not going to happen. I think it's really important that we look at this and see that data needs to be available in the same way that other types of infrastructure is, such as electricity, roads, the internet, because it helps others build on top of that infrastructure. And right now I'm bashing the data.gov portal a little bit, but I'm sure this is the case in a lot of organizations. The data is locked away in a department with a few specialists who understand all these different file types, who have the skills. But this should also be the case for other organizations, whether private, public, or nonprofits. And there are three limiting factors in really making data accessible in your organization. The first one is time. If the way you access data in your organization is time-consuming and cumbersome, that limits the amount of data you can access, obviously, because we only have so much time in the day. What we see in a lot of health departments we work with is the data they access is through the state's websites. It's a data portal online where they have to answer 20 different questions and queries to slice and dice the data in the right way, and it's not easily accessible. But technically, the data is available. The next limiting factor for an organization to really have data accessible are skills. As we saw earlier on, all the file types, I don't know how to deal with them. And you really need to be a specialist in many cases to work with a lot of data that's out there, if it's not made in file formats such as Excel and CSV that are more accessible. And then finally, the last limiting factor is budget. So if you want to make data more accessible in your organization and build that foundation that can help you get to more data storytelling, consider the budget. The browser or the portal you ask people to use to access that data, the more expensive that is, the fewer people will be able to access data. And fewer people will be able to tell the stories within your organization and help drive decision making and sharing of information. So with that, I'll do a quick brief overview of the data tools on the market and sort of the categories we see. It's not a full image, because a full picture of data tools, because there's so many out there. But we see a number of different groups. The first one is really for data science. And here we see the main ones are SAS and SPSS. These are statistical analysis systems. It allows you to do bivariate analytics, t-test, cluster analysis, linear regression, and if that made sense to you, this is probably the tool that you're going to be using. And the chances are you're already familiar with those because they are sort of the market leaders when it comes to that. It's used for a lot of clinical trials, used for sophisticated marketing analysis, product user testing, that sort of thing. Then we have the development landscape, where if you as an organization need to develop a storytelling tool or a data tool in-house, you look towards the programming languages R and Python, which are obviously has a high, you need a high level, need a lot of skills to work with those, and it's only if you want to then build out a system that makes data more accessible within your organization that you look towards these. Then we have probably the biggest group, business intelligence, where there's hundreds of players in the market. The big ones are Tableau, Qlik, Power BI by Microsoft. They're really good at integrating a number of different, they're very focused on B2B, and they're really good at integrating with other business services such as MailChimp, Salesforce, Google Analytics that have data and is able to export data and then make sense of it in those business intelligence systems. That's sort of the person who will be using these is generally the business analyst. Then sort of in the other spectrum we have the infographics data tools. Infogram and picture chart are two great tools for making, telling stories using infographics, making visually appealing and compelling stories. So I highly recommend those for that sort of thing. And then finally we have LiveStories, data storytelling. We try and make it really easy for anyone to visualize data, share it and present it. And since I happen to have connections in LiveStories, we've set you up with a free account for today's session. So we'll be logging on to LiveStories, and I'll walk you through it. And then we'll have you play around with data yourselves to try and discover some of the data sets that we've pre-uploaded for you. And that will really be the next session, our next part. So let me just exit this. So if you have your laptop, open your Chrome browser, that's recommended, and go to livestories.com/new-user. No, limited. But if you didn't bring a laptop, team up with someone who did. I have do you have any spare ones we can end up? So log in. I have here an account. Sign up.
Are you trying to show something?
Oh, sorry, I'm not showing it. Here we go. And when you open up, you'll see a number of data sets we've loaded up for you. We have obesity data for California. We have farmers markets data. We have pattern data, population data by county, US population data by state. And we have the Forbes top 1,000 billionaire list that you can go and explore. In here you can search by terms for what you're looking for. It'll show that for you.
Anders, could you repeat how you sign in?
Yeah, LiveStories.com dash new user.
And you want to forward our
Or forward slash, sorry. So I can.
We should just create an account or is it done here?
No, you can just create your own accounts.
This is the URL.
Whoever's trying to log in, is anyone having a problem logging in?
Yeah, I might be able to join us on this Wi-Fi with everyone right now, but I'll open up and then it should be a lot easier because it'll happen on the back end. But this is an opportunity for you to just take a look at the data sets. You can click it up and view it, what's in there. And you can then go and explore the data sets in our explore function over here. And this will just be a quick test for you to get an insight of what data is in there, and then we'll do a bit more storytelling around it later on.
So what things do you want to do? What do you want them to do?
So look at the data sets, see what's in them, get a sense of what sort of stories you can put together, and then go to explore, select the data set, try this one. And Explore will then give you a number of different visualizations based on that data set. You can also go and select all data sets, but in either case, it'll keep suggesting visualizations for you.
I think the Wi-Fi in this room is slow, and so our computer's still loading.
Really? Okay. Try and see if you can log in, but
We're generating the visualization, which is the
okay. And you'll see a number of different visualizations, so everything from maps to pie charts to number tiles. And you can even go in and in the explore function and just search for something specifically. Say you only want to see bar charts, it'll show that for you. But just try and get a sense of what's in there. And if you feel comfortable with it, you can go in and work on the data, the charts even more under the chart function. So any questions so far? Or anyone who needs help? No? So you'll get a chance to play around with a bit more data and in 10 more minutes. I just want to quickly go over some of the visualizations that people use and misuse, some of the mistakes they tend to make. So the next part will be which visualizations to use when. And I'm going to start out with one that everyone is pretty familiar with, the pie chart. People tend to put way too much data in there. pie charts are great for showing proportions of something, but in many cases people try and almost use it to show the distribution of items. So let's say you have 100 different categories, put it in a pie chart, and you will see that everyone is 1%. That's not really useful communication. You want to try and keep it simple, find a focus for it, a little bit like this one. Then maps. Maps are great for showing complex data and giving people a bit more context around it, giving so they can compare easily. Instead of showing a bar chart where you would have, say, in this case, you would have 100 countries next to each other, by using a map, you can quickly see a map that's combined with a heat map. You can quickly see which countries are popping out. In this case, it's the US and China as well. And everyone else is sort of on the same level. So it's great for showing that complex data and also providing people that extra information that is, oh, well, why is the number so high in the US when the neighboring country, Mexico, which geographically is similar, but obviously very different. They're in two different ends of the scale. Another one that's great for showing complex data is our heat maps. So in this case, you'll have two different categories, one of each axis, and you'll have a value. And as you can see in the heat map here, you can quickly see which ones are the outliers. You can even see the development over time. And then that allows you and the reader who you're trying to communicate this to dive into the data.
So what's the color coding? The red is greater intensity.
Yeah, so there's no legend on this in this case, so you would make sure to put that on by just trying to keep it simple. So yeah, in this case, when we do heat maps, we try and do it from cold to hot, try and make two colors that stick out on each end. So here you'll see that Seattle is way higher in 2010 especially, but also 2013. So you would want to look into what's going on here in this case. So it allows you to compare a lot of categories across. And then the donut charts. Donut charts are really great for showing and measuring performance and comparing that. So in this case, it's diabetes, which shows the percentage of adults with diabetes, and it's comparing, in this case, the county Adair in Missouri to the state of Missouri and national levels for this. So we see this used as for the easy comparison and also to updating on progress for performance and results dashboards. And then finally, there's a bar with a line. And this one is really great for showing two categories side by side, but when they have completely different values. So you can see in this case and you might not be able to see it, but here we're talking in thousands, and here on the right axis we're talking in hundreds. But it allows you to compare those two instead of having two bar charts next to each other, which people tend to do, where you have one that's tiny and you can't really compare the differences, and you have one that's super tall and kind of overpowers the other category. The bar with the line chart allows you to combine those two into one chart. Unfortunately, with this one, we also see people putting way too many categories in there. So you would have hundreds of bar charts with the line, making it completely impossible for people to decipher what's in there. Any questions to this? Nope. So with this in mind, we'll go into data storytelling in practice. And now that you've logged in, you have the account, it's up to you to try and create that story. And I recommend you do it around the dashboard. When you go to explore in LiveStories, and I'm just gonna, you'll see here that you can pin it, and you can create a new dashboard. So let's say I want to pin that, and I want to look into this further, modify it, and I want to make that a bar chart. And actually I want to have it maybe a completely different category, and I can then pin that as well. So try and go in and create, using the dashboard, create a narrative where you combine a number of charts that make sense together. So this is the result. And then go out and publish it. But really quick, I want to just cover some of the best practices around dashboards. So dashboards is a collection of a number of different charts. And what's really great is if you give a quick insight to the topic you're covering. So here you'll be talking about billionaires from the Forbes Top 1000 list. So give a quick picture of what's in that data set, and in this case, what's the distribution between male and female. We'll talk about what's the total net worth in dollars, how many female billionaires are there, and how many males. Now you're giving the viewer a quick insight to what's in the data set. You can provide a context, and that'll help them understand the charts as they scroll down. There'll be more information on the average age here. You can focus in on one area. And then I want to point out this one. This is an example of too much information in one place. This is just on the dashboard, and as you can see, it's not very easy to see what's going on here. This is the case both for dashboards or for reports, that people are trying to cram in too much information in one place. That's a no-go. Keep it simple, figure out what you're trying to say, and then get that across. And you'll also see, in this case, there's a lot of charts, maybe too many. So again, try and prioritize what is it you're trying to say, and keep it simple. Any questions?
Can we talk a little bit about audience, because in a previous session, there's County of San Diego and Marin were talking about LiveStories, and I saw these charts embedded into their stories about people they serve in their campaigns. And I have to say that even in the work that I've done with movies, the heat map is definitely the most visceral, the most emotional. It's completely communicated, and everything else you really have to decipher. And so, do you have experience with that? And saying, okay, in your organization, say you are a health improvement partnership, UCSF, private public hospitals, that whole thing, and what they want to do is communicate a lot of health data to improve outcomes. So, what would be the best way of communicating? Is it really just with the map, or all those charts and graphs?
So, what's the best way to communicate it?
What, in terms of an audience, so what's the best way to communicate with any of these storytelling methods?
Yeah, so I'll go into a little more detail about it, but I think the shift that we're seeing now is, we talked about in that session that health departments are used to making 150 pages PDF documents that they publish and no one reads.
Right.
The shift now is you need to create more engaging content. You need to make it easy to decipher, because people are not going to spend a lot of time diving into what's the issue. And that's why it's a mantra we keep, and we tell everyone, try and keep it simple, because people tend to, again, cram too much information into one chart, saying, I want to tell everything at once. And that's mostly because people don't want to prioritize. They don't have a clear picture of what is the most important thing to say. And you need to have that message down so you can then prioritize the charts and simplify them. Does that answer your question?
Maybe my question wasn't clear, but we can move on to another question. Well,
That's okay.
the thing is, like, do you have metrics, performance data on, like, this is the kind of graphic you should use when communicating, it's a public-facing thing. Like, for San Diego, it was very much a public-facing site, so with Marin. And so in that instance, when you really have a call to action with community members, community engagement, this is the kind of visualization you should use, whereas if it's more of an internal audience, you should use these charts or these graphs, like that sort of, like, do you have information on that sort of thing?
I don't have clear information on it. I mean, I see what you mean. So if you have, as an insider, you would have more insight to the issue, and with that you can also probably increase the complexity of your visualizations. But as a public member who's might have seen this for the first time and trying to understand the issue, I would lean towards the other end and narrow down what you're trying to say.
Right.
You don't want 100 charts, you don't want a 150-page PDF document. You want maybe a one-pager with the 3 most important charts.
Something emotional, actually. Heat maps are emotional.
Yeah, and another thing that we do also is we provide best practice kind of help doc. So when people go through and start coming with stories around, what kind of font sizes are good, and how do you create more compelling graphics, where you can get images from, what images should you use, right? You should always try to use action shots versus people are posing the camera, right?
Yeah.
So there are all these kind of other design best practices that we do share. Those are available in the sense that, like, when someone, our partners are creating those stories, we make sure that's available to them as a resource. Of course, it's like in a workshop, it's not part of the community. But yes, but there is a whole set of guidelines that we do for resources.
You might have answered this earlier. So how do I, once I make a story, how do I share this? Is it the thing?
Right, so let's go ahead with this one. So in this case, if you do the dashboard, and I'll show how to do the story just in a little bit, you go ahead and publish it, and it then creates an online web page for you. And the URL you have up here, you can share with anyone to view. And if you then happen to update your data in there, it'll push that automatically all the way out.
Which is my next question. With the spreadsheet, Google Spreadsheets, the Google Spreadsheet gets updated, does it pick it up?
Yeah. On a daily basis, yeah. Any other questions?
I have a question about the dashboard. Is there something that sits outside of the dashboard that sort of explains the unified theme? I mean, if you're trying to prune all the world data available around the topic into just a few things that seem like the most important things.
Mm-hmm.
There's a narrative that goes along with that process a little bit, which is why you pick what you pick or whatever.
Yeah.
It's before you get to the thing itself. Like, yeah, there's 114 female billionaires, but sort of why the female billionaire? Why are you including this in the dashboard? I think it's a little, it's graphically, I think, challenging to sort of have that. How do you depict sort of why along with the thing? Is there a place for that in the dashboard?
Yeah, so there is, in here you'll see the plus symbol on a document, and that's actually a note. So you can add a note in here.
Put it as a note.
Yeah.
And the note gets published.
So you will see here, we do the test. And if I then, see now, right now there's nothing, but when I visit it the next time, there's a small note here, and you'll see the explanation around it, why I chose that graph.
So when someone clicks on that, they'll see the explanation.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. So this is the sort of the quick way to tell some story and get that out there without having to do design work and do copywriting. This is the quick way of publishing and do data storytelling.
I feel like
No? Yeah.
I feel like this was really meant for more of an internal audience or like a sector audience, whereas my work is more about civic engagement, community engagement. And I would just as feedback, I would love to see the kinds of graphs that evoke emotion and can be communicated within seconds. Like the more the emails, but also like volcano things erupting 3D, like that got definitely a great reaction from the community. So
Yeah, we always update our visualizations. Happy to see what you're thinking of, and see if that's something we need to implement as well. Yeah, definitely. So feel free to play around with this a little bit. We have about 10 minutes left, so play around for a couple of minutes, and then I'll just go over the last part about storytelling in context. So let me just cover really quick, and you have this account is set up for you, so feel free to play around with it afterwards. We'll hang around as well if you have any questions. I really quick just want to go over the importance of storytelling and the importance of context. So why do we tell stories? Stories are engaging. They help us communicate something complex into a more understandable and engaging narrative. If you look at the World Bank and their reports, which is sort of the standard way of sharing data, 31% of them are never even read, not once. That's hours and hours and hours and money wasted for no good. That's why it's so important that we're moving into the more engaging, interactive format of data stories. Because the old way is this: it's too much data in one place, and this is a little bit of an exaggeration, but I've seen so many reports like this, where you're trying to tell too much. The new way is where we try and combine everything from text with rich media such as video, images. We want to create an emotional message as well, make people act after they've read it. And you want to put that into one package that can be easily updated, easily shared, and it's easy to make a call to action afterwards. So if we go to, the way we do that in LiveStories is in the story section. And if we go ahead and create a story, we try and make this really easy by providing a template for you, where you put together the layouts in the story, and you create this engaging experience. So the way you do that is you have different layouts in here, and we could start out with the 3 columns layout. You can now see that everything that's images you can click on and update, and you can add a chart from the dashboard, or you can add a video and image. Or you can also go ahead and create a new chart. So let's say we want to make a story around obesity. We'll add an image. Let me go ahead and click new chart. So if you select the obese state of California, county, and percentage obese, we'll start out by highlighting one county with the filters, and we can go ahead and say Fresno. And we want to add that to the story. We could then go ahead and compare that against the state. You could want to compare it against another county, and have that sort of quick insight to what's the issue. We would update the text down here. And maybe just want to have 2 of them. Then we want to go ahead and maybe want to add a video in this case. And here we go ahead and paste any embed code from, say, YouTube. So if we go to, I actually have one here. Say here's a documentary on obesity. We just go ahead and add that. And you now have a more engaging experience with the video as well. That helps tell that more nuanced story that data stories are. You don't want to have one perspective. Usually presented with one number. In this case, 29% of people are obese. You don't know if that's a good or bad thing until you have a comparison, until you have the goal of what we're trying to reach, what is actually a good number. And until you understand the entire issue around it. And the way you can communicate that with data storytelling is by having the richer media, such as videos and images, and combining that into a story.
Well, it's well known, I think, especially among journalists and media, that you can't tell a story about millions of people or hundreds of thousands of people, because you can have two images. You have people in one image, you've got one or two people in another image telling the same story. What's going to attract the most attention, the call to action is actually lead somewhere. It's the image with just the two people and one person. And so to tell the broader story, you really need to have an individual that you're focusing on, or a small group,
Yeah.
2 or 3. And so I love that video idea. I have a question. Oh, go ahead.
Okay, that's fine. But that's absolutely right. Another important aspect is to make this, journalists know this, it needs to be relevant for anyone to engage and read the story. And the way you make it relevant is to make it personal. It's either the community you're part of, it's something you can connect with emotionally, it's a person you're portraying, instead of just making it about data. Because there's so many reports that about just the data, you want to make it about the people and tell that story and have people act afterwards, whether that's your colleagues to rally up a campaign, or whether it's influencing policymakers, or it's helping spread the word in the media. That's really important.
Actually, the more data you have, the more apathy develops, because the more sense of powerlessness and inability to do anything about it.
Right.
And so it's why you want to take that data and bring it down to 1 or 2 people.
Correct.
You can help 1 or 2 people, but you can't help millions.
Yeah. And it's also the making people care, whether that's emotionally, intellectually, and also in many cases aesthetically. You want to make them care, and you also want to make them act. And you want to do that by balancing the rational with the data and the emotional on the sides with those personal stories and the richer media. We are running a little short on time. But I want to show you an example of some of the stories that you can create with a bit more time. Here's one we did on Seattle housing affordability, where you have the cover elements up here, you have the interactive charts, you can see the yield development, so you have that comparison and see if there's any progress or not. And then it allows you to also filter down and make it relevant to you. In this case, it's on a region basis, but we do a lot of reports where we do it down on a county level. And you could do it down to a zip code level or city and have that comparison. So people, it's not just obesity in the US, it's obesity in my county. Help make people care. Another example, which is a little more data-oriented, and which is a mix between a dashboard and a story, is this community health dashboard we created for Missouri, where we try and give a quick insight to what it's about with an image, but also adding sort of this graphic of a woman with a baby, and try and wake a little bit of emotion with that. And here you can see that it's comparing the county against the state and the national level. And here's the example of where you can then have it filtered down to exactly the county that you are in, or send it out to the people in that county you want to influence. And it then automatically updates it in here, all the way down. And then at the end of it, you can have a call to action. In this case, this is some of the marketing material we do, but our call to action would then be request a demo, right? It could be anything. But not only having the data, but also making sure that you're having that convincing people and having that call to action so it actually moves something.
The call to action at the very bottom.
Yeah, so
Instead of scroll down to get to the bottom.
I mean, you can put that anywhere, right? So, and that's why we recommend. So we looked at different stories as well, and obviously, if it's a long story, people are not going to scroll all the way down. And that's also the shift when doing long reports, PDF reports, 150 pages. You want to do a quick overview of an issue, and then allow people to explore more, maybe sub-stories of it if they want more information, but otherwise keeping it at a higher level and focusing on the main points. So I had a few more things to show you, but we're running out of time. If you have any questions, if you play around with your free trial, feel free to reach out to us. Here to help. And we'll also stick around after the session right now. Thank you.